even for the purposes of the meeting, it's helpful to have your club name after your name. And if there's more than one of you, like I see a couple of you have like a couple people on a computer, if you just want to put both your names too, that would be helpful. But I know Mike and Ross, I saw you guys, folks from Craftsberry, Ryan, and I'm not sure who the other gentleman is, but if you guys put both your names, that would be helpful too. It just solves a mystery later on for us. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us, first of all, on a Saturday morning. It's certainly a different format this year. I know it's not always the easiest format, especially for those that are, first-time Zoomers or just learning. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate you bearing with us. And this actually may be a format that we continue with down the road. We've had a lot of good positive feedback from folks. What we would possibly do is add a little bit updated information and some newer information to everyone. Have some other guest speakers maybe come on and make this a little bit better. But today it's going to be mainly review. A lot of you probably know all this stuff. Probably, figure it out in your sleep. But what we're going to do, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes on some basic grant and aid programs and just some simple stuff to remind everybody of some deadlines. And then Ken is going to jump on for about 20 minutes and talk about some signing and some mapping things, just some brief basics. We're not going to get down into the weeds on much of it for this seminar. And then we're going to open it up to like a question and answer session after that. So if anybody has questions about what Ken and I are talking about, if you want to just save the questions until the question and answer session, I think it'll go a lot smoother. That's what we've done the first couple of sessions, and it's worked a lot better. So just jot down the question and ask it at that time, and it'll flow a little smoother, I think. And hopefully the Q&A session is actually beneficial to everyone, where you can learn something based on a question somebody else asks. And I'll remind everybody of this again, but if anyone has a question they don't feel comfortable asking on this format or this forum, you're camera shy or whatever, you'll certainly reach out to Ken or I via phone or email. We're always available. So reach out with your question that way too, if this sparks up a question for you. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to jump into my part of the presentation. And let me just make sure there's nobody else trying to jump on here. Looks good. Check my phone too, see if anybody texted me in crisis mode because they can't get on. We're good. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I actually need to. You think after doing 3 of these, I would have this figured out by now, but all right, hang on. Let me go back. That's not what I want to do. There we go. All right, so everybody can see, should be able to see my screen now. If you have a camera, Roy, you got your camera working. All right.
Yep.
So this is the VAST website. I'm going to go through the grant and aid programs. The first one I'm going to cover is the equipment grant and aid program. The reason I'm going in this order is the equipment grants are due first. So those are the most relevant grants that people need to get in. So basically the equipment grants or any of the grant and aid forms are available on our website. If you go under forms, they are all right here on the right-hand side. Equipment grant and aid, rescue, construction, debrushing. There's all kinds of other resources on here, which we'll touch on. Ken's going to touch on a few, but equipment grant and aid application right here. I'm not going to bother clicking on it because I'm just going to cover basics on it. There's no point in trying to test my internet and make it download that form while we're on Zoom. So the equipment grant for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's for the purchase or repair of grooming equipment, which is power units or bags. Clubs are eligible for up to 60% of the net purchase price on power units, and that figure is capped at a particular figure based on the number of contract weeks you have. It's generally $40,000 to $53,000, somewhere in that range. Like I said, depending. For drags, we cover up to 50% of the net purchase price. We also have a capital repairs grant as part of this program, and that will cover, basic repairs like a refurb on the machine. And we've sort of been trying to encourage clubs to look to that option instead of buying new. At some point, you have to buy new. It's not worth putting, $30,000 into, a hole in the ground, as the saying goes. The groomer's old enough. It's not worth 30,000, even if you put 30 in it. At that point, there comes a time to buy something new. We are trying to encourage clubs to do capital repairs grants and get things fixed up and, groom with the machine for another few years. We will cover track repairs on machines that are 10 years old or older. And any grant that's received for equipment, there is a lien placed on that equipment. So the club needs to groom with that equipment for X number of years, depending on, what the grant amount is. So like I noted, I'm not getting into the weeds on all the various policies that are attached to these different things. But if any of you are curious on that, you can go to the trail policy manual, which I actually updated yesterday. We just made some changes to it at the board level last week, and it's the newest one right here, 2022. You can click there, has all the nitty-gritty details of all of the grant processes for that matter. But also, if you don't want to look through that whole document, it is a good document, and I encourage you to be familiar with it and look at it. However, if you're focused on just the equipment grant and aid application, if you download this form, on the back, all of the policies surrounding equipment grant and aid are listed there. It's like a little excerpt out of the trail policy manual specific to equipment. The same with construction and debrushing. It's all there. So download the form, read it. If you have questions, reach out. And those again are due June 1st. So that deadline is coming fairly soon. The next grant and aid application I'd like to talk about is construction. That is available right here on our website. This is for any trail work, trail relocations, bridge repairs, anything to do with trails. You basically download the form. You're going to fill out your club name, the contact information, a description of the project, the location. Then you're going to itemize your costs. Whether you have excavator, bridge lumber, all that hardware, different things. You're also going to know if there's any permits required. You're going to obtain copies of those permits to send to us. And before you send it in, it needs a county trail coordinator signature. So each county obviously has a county trail coordinator. You need their signature. Landowner permission forms are required for any land that you're doing work on, which, as you can see, those are available on our website. This is a fillable PDF. With COVID, it's actually pretty handy to send this out to landowners, and it's, sort of contactless, so to speak. Obviously, you have landowners that don't have email and aren't computer savvy. You're going to need to get them on somehow. You can print this off if you want, or if you want the carbon copy forms, just reach out to us at the VAST office. We can send you some. And the carbon copies are the 3 copies where the landowner gets one, the club keeps one, and one gets sent to the VAST office. So those are there. Any projects that involve bridge work would need a bridge agreement form. What this form does is basically determines what's going to happen to that bridge if the VAST trail no longer uses it. And we try to get this done before the bridge is constructed, before we invest money in it, so that everybody's clear sort of upfront what's going to happen to that bridge. There's 3 options. The landowner can keep the bridge if the cost is under $2,500. If they really want it, we'll give it to them, and they assume liability. The other option is we go in and remove the bridge and restore the the trail and the stream bank and everything in a good fashion and make it look decent. And the other option is they buy the bridge if they really want it. But it was let's say a $10,000 bridge. We can look at the fair market value of it and say, oh, it's going to cost us, $8,000 to replace this bridge, and they can buy it for that. We haven't really dealt with this a lot. Usually the landowners sort of want to just us to take it out of there and be done with it and not have it there, and they don't want the liability. That's what that form is for. So that's required for bridge work. Now, to note, we are trying to actually go online with the construction grant aid application this year. Ken, Beth, and I have been working on that form the last couple of weeks, trying to get it ready to go. So it'd be a very similar format to any of you that filled out the grooming financial analysis this year. It's going to be a very similar format to that, where you kind of plug the numbers in, and hopefully everybody's going to start liking that way, because I think that's the way we're going to head with all these applications eventually. It's a lot easier for us, and I think it actually is easier for all the volunteers in the end. We have a way that it can save a copy and kick it back to you. It'll also kick it out to the county trail coordinators for signature. You can upload photos and permission forms. And again, we're building this and working on it, so it's going to keep getting better as we work on it and as you folks give us feedback too. So look for that soon. It'd be good to get all your information. Obviously, if you have to plug it in to the online form, you still need the info. So if you want to download this construction grant application and make notes on it, that's good. You can plug it in the computer when we're ready. So just look for that. Again, policies are listed here associated with construction, but they're also in the grant. Deadline for this, for these applications, is June 30th. And just note that I'm going to cover this again in a minute, but repeat's good sometimes. They're due in the office June 30th. That's when we need them by, not postmarked or anything. We need them in my email or in the office if you're going to mail it. Or if you're using the online format, you would need to do it at 11:52 p.m. right before the deadline if you want. So the next application is the debrushing grant aid application right here. This is basically for any brush work involving mechanized equipment. It does not cover handwork like with a saw. It's for getting a bush hog out there or a sidearm mower to mow back your trails. It can also be used for the purchase of a brush bar. Clubs are eligible for a third of their trail system annually, or up to 50% of a brush bar. Now, there's only a percentage of the debrushing budget we can use for brush bars each year. So if we had 30 clubs apply for a brush bar, there would only be a select few that could get them. But it does help with that, which is a nice benefit. We didn't have that for a number of years, and we decided to do that in the last, I think, 2 years or 3 years. As you all know, volunteer labor and help is dwindling in a lot of clubs. So if the brush bar helps while you're out grooming to get some of the stuff and make it more manageable, then that's sort of our goal. Makes for a better trail and helps the volunteers out. And again, all the policies are in the application or in the trail policy manual. And typically when I look at these, if you want to get landowner permission forms from each landowner you're debrushing on, that's fine. I typically won't require it. You can reach out to your landowners. So I'm assuming you're going to reach out to your landowners and talk to them before you're going to go cut brush on their property. And I know some clubs send out just a generic letter to all their landowners and say, we're going to be debrushing, and I'm going to assume you're going to contact your landowners and they're good with it. So I don't always require permission forms from 26 different private landowners when you're just going and nip a few things here and there and in a bad corner where the brush is grown in, whatever. So, but if you get them, that's great. Send them with the project. Just some general grant and aid applications, information that's applicable to all of these. It's important to fill out the applications completely, have the county trail coordinator sign off on them. Their signature is required on all of these. I know, I think I only talked about it maybe on construction, but equipment grant they need to sign, as well as the brushing. There's a place for them to sign. Quotes from contractors or dealers selling equipment for the equipment grants is helpful. Communication is a big key. Just let us know what's going on and just keep us in the loop. And once I get any of these applications in, I go through them and I review them, and I send back an acknowledgement form. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with these, but it's basically a little form that tells you if the project's approved or not, how much funding it's approved for, and if I'm missing any paperwork, and it lists the paperwork. Now, as I noted, the construction application is going to go online this year. So ideally, we're going to send that back like automated in an email, I hope. And we're working on all those details, how that's going to work. But it would still list, what's missing, just like the acknowledgement form does now. I also send back the trails request for reimbursement, which is a purple colored form. And what that form is for is when you are done the project, you write down all your amounts and costs associated with the project on it, and you attach the receipts that go with those amounts you wrote on there, and then you have the county trail coordinator sign that, and you send it in for reimbursement. So it's like the little reimbursement package. And again, the construction, we're hoping to sort of automate some of this, where you can upload invoices. Again, more details to come on that. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be great for those that are computer savvy and like to do it that way. It's very streamlined, I think. And if you send back the trail request for reimbursement, and I am still missing paperwork that was checked off on the acknowledgement form, like let's say a permission form or something, I won't reimburse the club for the project until I have that. So it's important to, like I said, be complete and thorough on these and get all that into me. It's really helpful not to go back and forth on paperwork. You guys hate it. I don't particularly like it. And, sometimes it's just confusion. I don't think I have something, and I do, and we get it figured out, but hopefully we keep that to a minimum. And again, the trail request for reimbursement requires the signature of the county trails coordinator. Make sure that's on there. And once again, my little plug, the trail policy manual has all this stuff in it for your reading enjoyment. I'm sure most of you will probably download that and read it right after we're done this meeting. Pretty sure. So deadlines for the applications, I've sort of mentioned them as I've gone through them, but just a quick summary. Equipment grant aid application and the rescue equipment grant aid application, which I didn't cover, but those are all due June 1st in the VAST office. The construction and the brushing are due June 30th in the VAST office. I want to mention the special May Trails Committee meeting that is coming up on Monday, May 17th. Any clubs that are looking to add additional mileage to their grooming contract, upgrade their grooming contract to a different class, or construct new trail or anything, to the Trails Committee at this meeting. So what I would need is just a email or letter or whatever from the club with the request to be put on the Trails Committee agenda. And I would need that by May 10th, which is a week before the meeting. So then I can put the agenda together for the Trails Committee, and somebody from the club would need to be in attendance at that meeting to represent the club and present the request to the Trails Committee. And then the Trails Committee will vote, ask questions if they need to, and then we'll vote on it. And it then has to go to the board of directors. So the Trails Committee would make a recommendation to the board that, the new trails approved, or the new mileage, or the contract upgrade, or whatever. So if any of your clubs are looking to do something like that, reach out to me. And if you have questions on it, let me know. I've had a lot of questions from the other seminars on that. if you're opening up a new trail, an existing trail that has been closed for 6 or 7 years, you don't need to bring that through the Trails Committee. That's opening up a closed trail, in my mind. It's for new stuff. Like, hey, we want to get to. I'm going to pick on Dave Domenico. I know I've talked to John about trying to get to the gas station there and get off the Cloud Road, and he talked to me about it. I'm like, yeah, that should come to the Trails Committee. It's a new trail coming in from a different way to a gas station that everybody needs to get to because it's the only gas. So that's the kind of stuff we look at as the Trails Committee, trying to prioritize what the needs are. Sometimes like a loop trail isn't necessarily going to be high priority versus one that goes to gas or different things. So anything like that, reach out to me. We'll get you on that agenda. Again, that deadline's sneaking up pretty quick in a couple weeks. So any questions on that, certainly let me know. We cover grooming very quickly. Again, not getting into the weeds on it, but a lot of you understand the grooming contracts well. Some of you may not, but quick rundown here. Your contract is based on the number of grooming weeks you have, multiplied by the rate of pay for your class of grooming, multiplied by your contract mileage, multiplied by 2 times per week. We pay for 2 grooms a week. There's a cap that if you multiply those numbers together, you get your grooming cap, and it also determines your subsidy as well. So vast guarantees that we pay clubs 2 times a week for grooming for the number of weeks shown in your contract. So it's important for clubs to manage that and pay attention to those figures. Because basically we pay twice a week. There are ways that you can groom your trails additional times a week if you bank the mileage, so to speak, which means early in the season you don't groom as many miles. You don't groom your full runs. You have mileage banked, and you can groom some of your trails on additional time midwinter when there's heavier snow or more traffic during vacation weeks. So things like that. So there are ways to manage it, and that's what we're encouraging clubs to do, and keep an eye on the cap. So in the past, all of you are familiar with the log sheets we've used to keep track of the mileage groomed each week. Clubs write down their grooming runs and send them in each week. We are going to plan to move to the GPS this winter. All of our class 1, 2, and 3 power units have a GPS installed. We are going to rely on those solely next winter. And it's a big, as some of you know, we had a few issues with the GPS units working this winter. I believe we can address most of those and we can have them working well. We are asking clubs to keep copies of their grooming runs on log sheets on their own, just as a backup. And frankly, a lot of the clubs I know, you keep track of your fuel, different runs, how much fuel is pumped in each time. And that's just good stuff for the club to have for records if you're running the club really like it should be run. So keep them. And if there is some discrepancy, I know the GPS units, they are technology. They are going to fail. There's going to be some that fail, no doubt. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, no, they're going to work perfect. So they're not. We're going to have issues, but we're going to try to address them quickly. And we're going to have some fail safes in place early in the season to make sure they're working and try to manage it a little better than we have. So that's kind of a big step. The class 4 grooming equipment, if any of your clubs have that we're still going to rely on log sheets for those contracts right now. Ideally down the road, we'll find something to do with those as well. Maybe a GPS unit will work there. I think it will, but we need to explore that a little more and make sure the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak, to spend a few $100s on a GPS unit and $32 a month for the cell plan with it for a small 10-mile contract. Is it worth it? Probably it is in the long run to get rid of the log sheets. So again, we encourage clubs to keep track of their grooming runs though, as a backup. As you know, the financial analysis some of you have recently done is due at the end of the year. That's going to be online from here on out. It's important to have accurate information on those financial analysis forms. That's sort of what the payoff from for each grooming contract. We look at that and see where people are running for cost, and good information helps us really look at that closely. So yeah, grooming, as most of you know, is our largest line item in our budget. I'm guessing like this year we're going to spend around $1.49 million in grooming to pay to the clubs that have groomed. We had a decent winter in a lot of areas, like areas that typically have lower snow, had a good 8 to 10 week season. So it's positive. It's a good thing. We're going to pay out a lot in grooming. So we had good membership. So things are pretty solid this year, but it's always important to manage the grooming contracts and keep an eye on it. It's a big expense. And ultimately it's sort of the end product that we deliver to our members too. So that's pretty much all I have for my quick rundown. And so that's that. And I'll kick it over to Ken and try to get him. There we go. I'll make him the host so he can do his thing.
All right, I'm going to share my screen also. Back to that forms page. So the goal of what I'm trying to cover is just to kind of introduce you, if you're not familiar, or remind you of a bunch of resources that we have on this page that can be helpful for planning your trail projects or getting trail projects done. So again, on the right-hand side of this page, can everybody see my screen? Matt, you can see the screen? Okay. So I've been starting with the ANR Atlas. So the State Agency of Natural Resources puts together an online mapping tool, and it has tons of information, tons of data available. So right here on the page, I have a little tutorial PDF that I put together, and that has links to this. So if you want to find the ANR Atlas again, you can go to this tutorial. And I won't go through this right now, but you can see this will remind you of a few different ways of selecting layers and showing different layers of what you can do with this, but I'll show that live right now. You can also just search for the Natural Resources Atlas and get that through Google pretty easily. So this is all a bunch of digital mapping data. Right when you first get here, you'll see a YouTube link on the left-hand side. That's an hour-long tutorial put together by the state employee who happens to be a snowmobile club member. And he uses an example of finding landowners along a snowmobile trail. So that's a good resource. If you get zoomed in somewhere, go to the VAST office here. If you click on layers, right here where it says filter layers, you can basically use that as a search. So if you put in trails, this layer called Trails E911 will show our trails. We send our trails to the E911 folks, so they'll show up on this map and they show up on the 911 map. It shows all other kinds of trails as well. In that tutorial, and I think my PDF, I showed a way to filter it to just show vast trails, but either way, this will show the trails. Same kind of thing. So if you're planning a trail project, you might want to put on the wetlands advisory layer, so that'll show you where there are wetlands. You might want to put on rare and threatened plants, so you can kind of avoid that kind of thing. So these will help you plan a project that won't need a lot of permitting, won't have a lot of issues. There's parcel data on here. So if there's statewide parcels, it looks like it's already turned on. I just need to zoom in more. So you can see property lines. If you click on one of those, it'll tell you some information, and then you can view additional details and look over here, and that's all the public data that's on this server for the parcel. It might tell you a landowner name. At the very least, it'll tell you the property span ID number, and you could go to your town office and figure out who owns that. So that's just one good resource. To remember about. Let's see here. Yeah, just along those lines, that when you're in that planning stage of your project, another good resource to look at is this best management practices. A lot of work went into writing that up, especially for new members. And if you have any question about whether you might need a permit, so if you're moving a lot of dirt, if you're working near a stream, if you're working in a wetland, you can search for your permit specialist. Find a permit specialist. So this is somebody who would be located near your town. You search by your town. They're a state employee who can help you figure out what permits you might need. So often there might be local zoning permits. Anywhere near a river, you might have floodway permits. That would be a town thing. Might be Army Corps of Engineers. So there's not just state. And getting those permits figured out and thought about ahead of time can save you a lot of headache later on if somebody comes and finds you doing a project they think you should have a permit for, and could make it a complicated situation. So that's about it for the mapping. I'm always happy to help with map questions or any kind of updates you need to do, or if you're working on a new trail, I can help you figure that out. So another big thing on this page are all of our signs and all of our information on signs. So this guidelines document, that's basically our signing policy, but it's also just a helpful resource for especially anybody who's new. It tells you how to place signs. But a helpful thing I think for everybody is the standard sign list, where we actually have a picture of all of our stock signs. So these signs are ones that I have piles of in the basement. These are the ones we encourage you to use signing your trail. So if you think you have a situation where one of these signs won't work, just try to use some creativeness with these signs to have things consistent around the trail system. Obviously, sometimes there's going to be a unique situation that needs a different sign, but and I do need to update this. We've added a few signs, for example, a big yellow stop sign that says your GPS is wrong, to try to keep cars from driving onto the trail if you have that problem. The recent posters, like the hands-on for safety poster, I need to add pictures of those. But we try to have a picture of everything here. A somewhat newer one people might not be so familiar with is the 911 road crossings. So a lot of clubs have done these, where you're encouraged but not required to start doing these at your stop signs. So when people are out on the trail, they can know right where they are, especially if they need to call for help. Provides a new landmark for them to keep oriented on your trail system. And they're pretty cheap. They only costing the clubs about $1.25 each right now. Back to the forms page. The sign orders can also just help you know what signs are available. So the standard sign order is an Excel file. And that's basically just a list of all the signs and their prices. If you fill it out in Excel and email it to me.
Oh, I just want to sit down there. Just want to ask you a question. Oh, I'm doing a Zoom meeting thing.
So that's the easiest way for me, is if you email it to me. The Excel file will do the math, and we can keep track of it best that way. But if you need signs, if that's not working for you, give me a call, send me an email, print it out, whatever you need to do, I can get your signs ordered. I also put together this little YouTube video if you have new people working on signs. That covers a lot of this. And then the 911, those stop sign 911 signs and the intersection signs get their own special order form. So if you want to do those. They're not on the Excel file. They're on this separate form. Let's see. I think I'm getting through my list. So a couple other just sort of off topic, but I want to mention them. Things on, one of them is on this page. Let me go to find it. Oh yeah, here we go. Forest pests. So we were contacted by the forestry, the Urban and Community Forestry Department, and they're really looking for help from the general public, and you all out working on trails could be very helpful to them to spot new infestations of emerald ash borer, hemlock woolly adelgid, or the Asian longhorn beetle, which goes after maple trees. So if you can take a quick look at this little 3-page thing that we have linked here about forest pests, and just keep an eye out for those things, it could be really helpful. If you see them out there, nobody might know about it. So, and that has a link of places to report it. And then another thing that I don't have, can stop sharing the screen. Don't have any kind of a link for it, but we're due for a new paper map this year. We do those every 2 years. We have pretty good map data now from all of the GPS trackers. But if there's any kind of trail work you're doing this summer of moving a trail that wouldn't have been tracked, or if there's anything that's wrong on the map still that I haven't fixed yet, secondary trails, anything like that, businesses that are listed that shouldn't be, there's no way for us to know that. So if you let us know sometime this summer before the end of August, we can get that updated onto the paper map. So the online map, the basstrails.org interactive map, that is my best attempt at what the trails actually look like. So if there's something wrong on there, if you can let me know, that's very helpful. I'm adding a layer called POI, points of interest. It'll be little stars on that interactive map. And I need to hear from you if you want to have anything added to that, like a vista or a clubhouse or anything else that somebody might actually plan a ride around. We don't want to have too many of those on there, but a few of them per club of places that people might want to actually plan a ride that don't show up otherwise as a business or something else on the map. So can tell me the coordinates of those. We added a thing, if you click on our map now, it tells you the coordinates are right where you clicked. So that's an easy way to tell me where to add a point. I think that's it. Matt, did I forget anything? You're muted.
Unmute. There was one thing that I'd forgotten to do the last 2 sessions, and I missed it again on this one. For construction grant aid applications, if anybody wants to know more about like basic management practices, we have our Bmp Guidelines book that's also on our website under forms. That's actually a very good resource for everyone to just kind of look through. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to print it out or anything, but just, cruise through it on your computer. Definitely gives you a little perspective on, laying out trails and different things. Obviously, we're typically put into an area where the landowner wants us, not necessarily where we would ideally like to be for soils and different things, but it's a good resource just to look at and to give, the contractors who are doing your work, it's not bad to hand it to them either, because they're really the ones that are going to have to sort of apply what's in that manual on the ground. Putting in, water bars and different things, broad-based dips, in as many places as they need to, setting culverts deep enough. Generally, they know what they're doing. That's why they're an excavation contractor, but certainly have seen stuff that was not done right as well by fairly experienced people. you can just basically look at it and it's not right. And, and obviously things change too, it may be right when it was installed, then drainage up above that particular drainage structure changes and it puts more water through, different things. But that's just a good resource, again, on our website there to look at along with that trails policy manual. So I'll just plug that. So yeah, I think that kind of covers our like 3,000 foot view of a lot of our grant aid programs, our signing, mapping. So we're going to sort of move into the question roundtable discussion part now. And I think there's not many of us on. So if somebody has a question, certainly, feel free to reach out and we'll try to take them in order as we can. You can also use the chat function if you'd like to ask questions to the whole group. And if anybody has questions, certainly reach out here or again, email Ken or I, or give us a call. For anybody, my cell, if you have your pen ready, 802-793-0929. So feel free to call, even if you want to follow up right after this is over while it's fresh in your head. Give me a call.
Hey, Matt, would you think you consider the trail through Passumpsic something new, or because that was open a couple of years ago? Do you want us to present that?
I think you guys are all set on that one. That's really
Okay.
reopening the existing trail. Like you said, it was open a few years ago. And yeah, I think it's funny. I think somebody else asked about that from one of the other clubs that's sort of working with you, which is,
Yeah,
it's good.
wonderful.
But I think you guys are fine. Just keep me in the loop, and you guys have all been doing that very well. So no need to mess with that one, I don't think.
I got a question, Matt. What kind of funding would you have available for this trail? Because both between Waterford and us, we're going to have to spend a little money.
Yeah, it's a tough one to know. I mean, we'd really have to look at what the overall costs are. And I know there was possibly a couple of bridges that I'd heard about. There's potential to use road bridges too, but yeah, there's a lot up in the air. So we'd have to look at it. We may have to, if it's real pricey, it might be something we have to sort of build over a 2 or 3 year period. We've done that before. It's not always ideal, but it might be what we have to do just to make it work.
Matt, my name is Ken Ruffner. I'm helping Mike and Ross on this. And this trail that they're speaking of, they're going through Passumpsic, runs abutment into the railroad bed. And what about with the feds? Is that going to be an issue?
Up against part of the LVRT.
No, it's an existing trail railroad bed that trains actually run on, and it runs right beside it. I mean, do we have a certain distance that we have to be away from that track that runs?
Yes, so that would be, yeah, you definitely want to reach out to the V-Trans rail division on that. They have some very strict requirements, like you kind of noted with the federal government. So yeah, there is a certain distance we have to be away. And if we're in the right of way, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of regulations, like even working in the right of way. A lot of times you have to have permits and flaggers on the railroad to even work within the right of way. And
Correct.
Just for their liability for the trains and stuff. So that would be a good one to reach out for early on, just to kind of get an idea of where they're at with it.
Because the correction of roads, I wonder it would be grandfathered because that was an existing trail. So I just want to make sure we cover all our bases before we go ahead and put money into this, or Ross and his team puts money into it. The reason I'm involved in it is because the landowners are my relatives. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page and happy.
Yeah. I would definitely reach out to V-Trans and just maybe do a little site visit with them right off on where you're thinking of going, even along the old trail, because it's probably going to need some work, like cutting brush or something like that to kind of open it back up. And like I said, even some basic things like that, they have requirements where they want flaggers for even cutting brush, on the tracks, but they're so afraid of a train derailing, and it's a big deal. So Yeah, I don't know. So, I don't know if they'll be opposed to it. We do run, like in there right away, as long as there's not a safety issue or something. I don't think they'd have a huge issue with it, but they would need to know and sort of, they are permitting a lot of their crossings and stuff with us now too.
Okay,
And, they'd want to add it to that inventory if we're in there right away.
okay. And the last thing, it's not something different. As far as attendance in this seminar, I didn't get a chance to write down, but I'm with the Winter Wanderers, and I don't know if I didn't get it right in my name, but I just want to make sure that we, have attended it. And this is a different question for Mike and Ross. Before you head down to my in-laws, please stop by my home so I can walk the trail with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just thinking here, did you sign in, Ken? Did you write down your club name when you signed in?
I did not. I did
Okay,
not
that's
sign.
fine. I made a note here.
But I am with the Winter Wanderers with Alan Schmidt. Thank you.
Yep, I noted it down. Thank you very much.
Hi, Matt. Dave Johnston. I got a real quick, probably dumb question, but this is the first year I've ever done this. We have a bridge for the track makers on 212. It's existing and it needs to be replaced, but it's up. The bridge is already there, but same landowner. Do I need to do all of that paperwork over again, or just a bridge grant paperwork to swap that out?
It's the same. Do you guys have a bridge agreement that was you already had with the landowner from when it was previously worked on, you think?
I'll check, but we've been running that trail for over 10 years, so I would assume that there is a bridge agreement because the bridge is there and we built it. Well, I didn't, but Aaron Weed, a decade ago built it. So I don't know if we have to do all the paperwork over again. Would it be a good idea, or just
if you want to let me know who that landowner is, I can look in our records too. If the club doesn't have it, I can look in our records and see if we have well, you need a permission form. Like a new permission form would obviously be good, but the bridge agreement form may already be signed for it. So if we have one on file, you would not need to do that again. So just let me know the name and I can look that up when I'm in the office and see if we have one on file. As we've had, the bridge agreement forms have been around for about 10 years. Prior to that, we did not have them. So we're actually starting to come back around to a lot of bridges that were decked initially when we first had those. So a lot of times we do have one on file. I try to keep them in a file by county, and it takes a few minutes to go through. But if we have it, no need to. And you just need to do the grant aid form and fill that out. And are you just decking the bridge? That's all?
No, a storm we had 2 or 3 years ago knocked out some of the pilings, not all of them, but it gets a little sketchier every year to drive a groomer over that. So we'd like to replace it.
Okay, so that one might actually need like a stream out permit, possibly to let the stream alterations guy know, because they can usually offer you good suggestions too on maybe you can move the bridge 6 feet and it makes a big difference, on the same landowner's land, and not not moving it way upstream, but do some things differently and make it a little longer than what it is. And they may have some good input on how to make it last a little longer so we don't have continued issues with it.
Okay.
So I think that would probably be, I'm going to say Jaron Borg maybe for your area. I'd have to look at the map, but I would guess maybe Jaron.
Okay.
So that would be good. And let me know. I can certainly help you with that too.
Yeah, I'll find out who the landowner is and exactly when they built the bridge, and I'll email you.
Okay. Yeah, let me know and I'll look around and see if I can help out and save paperwork if possible.
Okay.
Well, a lot of times it's really not a big deal to get a bridge permit if you're doing it the way they want you to have. If it's long enough and it's up out of the stream, then it would be covered under a general permit, and it's really not it's a little bit of time and there's maybe a permit fee, but it's not a real big deal. So
yeah, Ken's right. Like as far as like reaching out to the state, I know a lot of people get really apprehensive about that, but they're really good to work with. And like I said, if you're doing it, like you said, the way they want you to, and they actually go do a site visit with you and they're like, oh, you need to do this. A lot of times, like you said, it's just a general permit. And sometimes that can just be like a letter to the file, so to speak. They're just going to write it down. They know about it in their head. And that way, if you're doing bridge work out there in late summer and, somebody drives by and complains to them, oh, there's somebody doing work, they go, oh, yeah, I know about that. It's the snowmobile club, and I've talked to them, all good, and everybody's good. Saves a lot of headache. So it's not a real complicated process generally. So
Okay, good to know.
Ross Page here to Matt. We talked about taking an excavator and cleaning ditches and culverts and water barriers and all that stuff. How should I put that onto a form? Is trail rehab or what?
yeah, I would just call it trail tread maintenance. Yeah, just put the, like the roughly the mileage and, what trails and, yeah, just trail tread maintenance, drainage, trail tread improvements. It's an important piece of what we do. It'd be nice to, I wish we could go through a third of our system every year and do that, clean culverts and redo the water bars and clean things up. That'd be great if we had a trail system that was, static and always in the same place. We could really make a heck of a trail every 3 years if we went through and did that. But yeah, that's all. That's what I would put it down as.
Yeah, that's the main trouble you can have once your ditches get plugged up with leaves and garbage, and then you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But to do something like this, you're going to have to do a lot of traveling around and stuff. It's going to eat up probably more time than you do actual work some places. So it's going to be hard to get much out of your hourly time.
Yeah, no, it makes it tough for sure. It depends if you're running from like a trail from, one road to another, or a junction to junction or something through the various landowners. But sometimes it's not that way. It's a half-mile stretch on one side of town and a quarter-mile on the other. And yeah, I mean, that's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. Like the moves and stuff definitely eat up time and money. So, but yeah, that's reasonable to do that.
Oh yeah.
It can save us a lot bigger problem down the road when the trail's washed out. So
What happens, a lot of people cut stuff during the winter and stuff, and they never get it out of the ditches and whatnot. Then it's a problem later.
yep, plugs it up.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
so last year on the grooming mileages, were you going by our GPS? Because that's what it looked like to me, because we didn't get the monies that I had thought we were going to get. So apparently you went by the GPS on the Tucker
Last winter or
this last season.
well, we haven't done the final payment yet for grooming though either.
Okay, but the amounts leading up to that didn't seem to come up with my figures.
No. I'll have to touch base with you on that and see what I'm just looking real quick here, what the scoop was on that. I was looking here. Yeah, we were going off whatever you put on your log sheet for this year.
Okay.
What you submitted.
Okay, I'll have to go back over of course, I'll wait until I see what the final payment is. But I'd say it seemed like on the second payment, it was shy from what I had anticipated.
Yeah, and I'm just looking, that might be, I think I know why on yours. That's why I just wanted to look before I open my mouth here. I think I know why. Here. Let me just see. So weeks 6 through 10, you would have been, yeah. So what we do is you break the payments up into payment caps. So basically we take your grooming cap overall and divide it into 3 payments, and we won't pay out any more than, so what it does is it keeps clubs in check. Like you guys had a decent winter and you grew more weeks than your contract was for.
Yeah.
So you have 11.8 week contract and you groomed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, you groomed 11 weeks. So you're right there then. But yeah, the second payment, you were about $1,200 short, right?
Yeah,
Yep. And you should be able to get that, I think, in payment 3 possibly. Because you had some weeks like the week 13, you only groomed 58 miles.
right.
So some of that, you kind of banked it and it worked out. So basically you're over your payment cap in payment 2. So I have, just if you want to write this down, Roy, I have 1,425.5 miles of grooming for you guys for the winter.
1,425.
0.5. Yep.
Right. Okay.
You see if that corresponds with what you have. But yeah, it looks like we owe you it's payment 3. Looks like we owe you roughly like $4,848 maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is somewhere in that range. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rough figure. I would need to look at a couple other things, but that's roughly what it is.
The because definitely the GPS does show less mileage when I was looking at when I was doing the log sheets and that stuff, and then keeping track of the Tucker and stuff like that. It's definitely showing less mileage than what I was doing compared to what it says on the Tucker.
Yeah, was it off significantly or?
It's well, one time it was off. Well, I did over 100 and something miles because I had to double up on some of it, and I got only 90 something on the GPS, so it was like almost 20 miles, which is for us is going to be significant if we got figured this out to see what how this is all going to play out, and if not, we'll just have to figure out how to work with it. That's all. But
yeah, it's and that's the one thing. Like I know some clubs have been concerned about that, and the one this probably isn't like doesn't appease the issue, but it's like if everybody's being paid with a GPS, everybody's being paid the same, so it's like fair in that sense. But some of them have been off. I know like Chittenden Dammers, theirs has been off 20% every time. Theirs is actually looking into it more. I think they're one of the few clubs. I don't think that's your case, but they were off 20% every time, like right on the money, 20%. And what theirs ended up being is it needs a computer update from Allison, like a software update. And the computer on the machine for the Allison transmission, there's some software and it updates like the gear. I don't know. I don't say the gear ratios, but something in the computer. They're basically their odometer is reading wrong. It's 20% off, which is interesting.
well, see, ours the exact same years as theirs is.
Well, so that makes me wonder. I'm wondering. That's why I'm curious if yours is off. We'll have to look. Now that we have most of the log sheets in, Ken and I can do a comparison of what the log sheets versus the GPS says. We actually tried doing one like a month ago or more than a month ago, but without all the log sheets in, it throws up a red flag on a whole bunch because the GPS is saying he groomed, 500 miles. Well, I don't have the log sheets, so it's only showing 300 because I don't have them. So it's saying, oh, there's something wrong when there's not. I just needed the log sheets to catch up. So we decided at the end of the season, we're going to pull a report, and like anything that's off by more than, 10%, we're going to look at closer. And I don't think we're going to find many. I think we're going to find less than 10 clubs that we'll have to look at. But maybe yours is the same thing. That could be. Because we talked with Paul Tatro up at Track Inc. about it a little bit too. And he was saying, I guess sometimes when the machines come from out west too, the snow's different there. So I don't know if it's different gear ratio, there's something different. And they usually correct it when they bring them in and go through them. But that wasn't the case on Chittenden Dammers. There's just, I don't know. I don't think theirs came from out west either. But there's something off in that odometer and it needs to be recalibrated basically.
Yeah.
I wonder if yours is the same deal.
Yeah, ours is came from up by Cooks or Track Inc. That's where it was originally in one of their clubs up there. And
Okay.
so it wasn't an out west type of
Right.
vehicle.
Yeah.
Also, between on our 407 trail, there's a section that we don't normally have to groom because it's the landowners plow this road and stuff like that. That's still part of our trail system that we have to maintain the brush and that type of stuff on. We never hit that with the Tucker this year.
Mhm.
So how would I get the GPS mileage to you on that? Because that is part of the trail system. It may not always be groomed for sure.
If you look at the map that we have of it, and if it looks accurate, then it's in there already. If it's on the map, it's in your contract.
Okay, but but some of our stuff was way off when the first part of the season, and where we were going wasn't anywhere near where the vast map said we were, but it looked like towards the end you guys got that corrected. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I was trying to look around. If I saw the GPS tracker was not following the trail, I tried to fix that. Obviously, I might have missed some because it's a lot of miles to look through and just visually do that.
Yeah.
So if you can check, but if that's on a road, it should be pretty easy to see on the satellite data if it's actually following in the right place or not.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you'll be out there doing work, if you can run a track with the Vast Snowmobile app, you can do a breadcrumb or you can use any GPS.
I just wish I was smarter about that stuff.
Yeah.
Not smart about that
Yeah.
stuff.
Did you say though, Roy, that you groomed it like one time this year maybe or something?
No,
Or
one of the last times I was going to go out through there just to put tracks on the map, and the season ended quicker than I anticipated. And, so I didn't get that chance.
Like, has it changed in the last few years where we go out through there, or?
No, but just the things were kind of surprising that they weren't as close on part of it as I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
So I just wonder how close that is,
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. There's generally what we've looked at on the GPS units, looking at like comparing it to the vast map, like the mileage between junctions, has been pretty close on most stuff, unless, like you said, it was wrong and we had it in the wrong spot. There are the discrepancies though from the odometer and the machine to the GPS unit, and I mean there is, and I know you guys have pretty hilly terrain. I'm sure you get quite a bit of track spin that is in the odometer but not pulling on the GPS. I'm sure that's some of it, but how much of it is that? I don't know.
Yeah. The one other thing, not to tie you up, is the GPS units. One thing I thought might be nice if you could incorporate that into them things is to have some way of having a 911 button attached to that thing, so that if a groomer operator had a problem, they could push a button and it would contact somebody in the club or something like that, so they could, or something to that effect. I don't know if that would cost a lot more money or what, but like my dad was out there this year and I could see him on the GPS that there was a lot of marks in this one spot, but he wasn't going anywhere. And so I figured he must be stuck or something. But he could have had a 911 button to call somebody to help him maybe get some assistance,
Yeah, and it's always hard with the like looking at that too. I know you look and you don't see much, but if there's no cell service, it's not sending the data to the site that you're looking at. So it may go an hour and then all of a sudden it shows up like way over here. And it's like, oh, well, it just didn't send. It was still moving. I've seen that before too, when somebody's asked me to look and I'm looking and I'm like, well, then all of a sudden it appears on the screen. So I hope it's there. But yeah, we did have one company that had those. I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look back at some old emails. They have them you can add into the groomer too. It may actually even be a separate thing that the club could do. I think they were like $100. They weren't a lot of money, and it would be a separate thing that could,
go back to having a pager.
Yeah,
that's kind of like what this was. It was
Basically
like
what it would be.
Yeah, but that's going by cell service, not by GPS, right?
Well, our GPS units are also going by cell service. They're getting the location from the satellite, but they're sending information over the cell phone. So that's why they won't work in some places, and it will catch up. It's getting the location and storing it on the device. And when it connects to the cell service, it'll send it. So we're not sending it over satellite. That's a lot more expensive.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. It's so I'm just looking here, Roy. I'll see if I can find it while we're talking here.
There are trackers that send over satellite, but they typically only send a point every minute or two because it's so expensive to send the data. So you don't get a very good line.
Oh, okay. Good information.
Any
Matt.
other questions while Matt's looking at that?
Ken, I was just going to mention it. Drift dusters will gladly, we have a GPS spot that's used for emergency purposes. There's a small fee you pay for the months that it's active. It's got an emergency button on it, and you can also track your groomer operator as well. If there's any club that's interested in it, we'll gladly give it to you guys. Just contact us. Yeah, we don't use it anymore because we got cell phone service pretty much on 100% of our trail system now. We also have a two-way radio. So
Spot,
right now.
Spot is the brand name or the model name of that.
Correct. Yeah, it's a small orange
Yeah.
module that we basically zip tied to our brush guard, and we used that before we had the GPS in our machine, and it's got a button on there that it's got two purposes. One, you can call for like a helicopter, which is expensive. I would advise not using that unless you absolutely need to. Or it's got a button that you can use to call for help within your local club, and it would text message whoever you want to be notified. They'd get a text message, help, I'm stuck. Then you just look at where their location is and you'd go out to them. So it's just sitting right now in our clubhouse. We'd be happy to give it to any club that wants to use it.
Yeah, that's funny, Roger. I almost think that's the one that we tried years ago, Spot. That sounds familiar, and that's what I was looking for. That sounds like exactly what it was. It's a really, yeah. We tried it out. I think we tried it in Bethel's groomer when Tim Mills was involved. I remember like who I dealt with on it, but it was a long time ago. I don't even know if I have emails that far back. It was a while ago, but I think it was Spot. I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, they make a couple of newer receivers than ours, but you really don't need a fancy one. It does the same thing, and like I said, we'll give ours to a club if they're interested. So
yeah, because that's what I was thinking for Roy. That would be perfect for like your situation. That's really all it's primarily for, is for like an emergency, and it tells you where they're at. And I think there's like a little button you push on it, right? And it's pretty simple. It's not fancy to run.
yeah, there's a couple of buttons, and like I said, one of them it basically automatically calls 911 for a search and rescue team, which in some places you can be charged for the fee for the search and rescue fee, but there are other buttons on there that we had pre-programmed that basically say help, I'm stuck, or help, I'm injured, or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Hey, Matt,
Yes.
the sometime along the way, once you things maybe wind down a little bit, if you could see what you think our actual mileage is compared to what was on our last grooming contract, if you could let me know if it's the same or different or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. You mean like the actual contract mileage?
Yes, because I think you have us down now for 30, and I don't know with the GPS what it shows now at this particular point.
We can look at that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for this spot in Craftsbury. I've talked with Roger about it, but we have a cornfield that the landowner wants to open up to like a vast parking spot and a helicopter pad. It's a huge cornfield. right on the cemetery road, right next to the trail in Craftsbury. And I was just wondering which part, like, to get that like going, like which way do we go?
Yeah, Roger, are you still on?
Yes.
I'll let you answer that one.
I feel like we discussed this already.
I asked you about it and you said you'd get back to me. That's why I wasn't sure which do we need to get on something before June 1st or
Well, Matt would have to know. It depends on if you want somebody to pay somebody to plow it, or if somebody's going to donate their time. But if you're looking for money for reimbursement from Vast to plow it, you'd have to. I don't know. Matt would know when the deadline is for that.
and then as far as making it like an official parking spot in the helicopter thing for VAS, how do you do that?
That's easy. We just GPS the spot and fill out an application with the information on where it is, and then we give Ken the coordinates to put it on the VAST map. We give 911 the coordinates as well, and we give DART the coordinates as well. We design a sign, and VAST will supply one sign to display on the landing zone, and it will be a landing zone. It's pretty easy.
Okay, and I got no problem doing the first year. I'll plow it for free with my business and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, parking areas don't need to be, you don't have to go out there and plow it if it's got a 3-inch dusting. As a matter of fact,
Exactly.
it's better for the snowmobiles anyway. So you just keep it opened up, and it's pretty easy. So
Perfect.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wondering too if when did Eden groom that section for you guys, or
We do, yeah.
Yep. But they could come through and maybe push it back a little bit too and swing the groomer around in there if they had to or something. Maybe.
Yeah, it's right where we come on. I groom with Eden also, and it's right where we come onto the road is right there. So it's like already kind of opened up to it. It's perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll contact you directly about the landing zone. I apologize. It's on my list, but
So we're good as long as we don't have to apply for anything. We have all,
yeah,
also-
no, there's no deadline for landing zones. That can be done at any time. So I've got about 3,000 pages of paperwork that I need to get to Matt first that are on the top of my list. So I'll get
no
back
worries.
to
Well, save the trouble, Roger. Just deal with the landing zone first.
you. No, that's all right.
Oh. Yeah, no, there should be no deadline issues. I think, yeah, if you're gonna plow it, we could definitely get the parking area on the map and get you a sign up there too. The one thing I was thinking is, I guess because the helicopter landing zones need to be packed down, right, for the helicopter to land. Would the parking area at all interfere with, like, people aren't going to be parking where the helicopter needs to land? I guess that was something that just popped in my head. Like they're separate, kind of, but side by side.
Yeah, we could. I mean, it's just such a huge area, that the cornfield. So we could do a separate area that you can't like drive into, maybe.
Okay.
Somehow, maybe we could do that with a groomer or something.
Yeah, hack it down a little bit or something, and then keep a snowbank between it and the.
Or just mark it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And just so people know, I mean, they're only looking for 100 by 100 to land, and they landed in a 12-foot driveway this past year. I would say that they took up about 12 feet by, I don't know, 40 feet, for their helicopter. And but 100 by 100 is optimal, and it doesn't have to be packed down. Usually they work with first responders to go in there and pack it down with with sleds or whatever, but they will land in a field as long as it's not like 3 feet of snow. But if they're landing in, a foot of powder or whatever, it's just, there's going to be a lot of rotor wash, from the snow. But other than that, they'll land there if it's needed. But a parking lot would be perfect if it's plowed just a little bit bigger to leave an area for the chopper.
Yeah, there's also a monster field that the trail goes through right across, so they could really just land on the trail on the big field next door anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? We did get the couple of names too, for those that called in, from Brookfield. We got you down. We've got, Mount Abe, Todd, yep, got you, made some notes, so you guys are all checked in. Yeah, and yeah, Roy, I think there's a couple of options out there, definitely. I saw the note from David Johnston that the spot trackers or spider trackers used in the military, that those work. So I think that's definitely what you're looking at, Roy, something that's pretty basic that would send out a little ping or a signal if there's an emergency.
Okay.
So I can send you some info on those too, Roy. I'll look a few different ones up or find out what Roger has.
Okay.
That might be a better option than trying to work it into ours. Honestly, I'm just thinking it probably would be.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was something simple.
Yeah, I think it actually is. And it'd probably be good for other clubs maybe to have them. It's not like our groomer operators, most of them aren't getting any younger, you know. It's a few clubs that have young guys, but a lot of them are retired people that have the time to do it. And it's good to have something in them for sure.
Yeah. Well, Dad's 88 right now, so and he's out there by himself. So this year because of COVID and stuff. So
Right.
I didn't want extra people around.
Any more questions from anyone, or are we good? Well, I think I guess if we don't have more questions, I say we end the meeting, and if anybody has follow-up questions they think of while they're sleeping tonight or something, definitely reach out to us, email or call, and we'll get back to you on those specific questions.
This Ross page, the Topsom Club bought their own groomer and went to grooming this year. How did that work out for them?
I think they liked it. I think they were happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, they have a Tucker or?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They bought a Tucker. I think it may have. Well, that one might have come from. That might have come from out west. I think through Track Inc. I think.
Yep.
I believe. So yeah. Yep. I think they enjoyed doing their own stuff. So. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. And like I said, think up more questions. You know how to get a hold of us. Hopefully everybody can enjoy the rest of their Saturday.
You too.
All right.
We're gonna go be a volunteer.
Perfect. Go take down trail signs.
Taking a walk in the woods. No good.
There you go. Watch for ticks.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks, you.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, man.
Thank you, Matt.